Hello everyone, today we are going to learn about Pulsus Paradoxus. So by definition, Pulsus Paradoxus is a fall or decrease in systolic blood pressure that is more than 10 millimeters of mercury that occurs when a person takes a deep breath or deep inspiration. So it is quite a physiological thing that your blood pressure falls to a certain millimeters of mercury when you take a deep inspiration. That is a normal physiological phenomenon. But if it falls more than 10 millimeters of mercury, then there is some kind of disease that's going on. So let me explain how does this happen. So in a normal person, when a normal person takes a deep breath, what happens is that his chest expands. Yeah, and because of this expansion of the chest, what happens, there is a creation of a negative intrathoracic pressure. So because of this negative intrathoracic pressure within the lung parenchyma, the blood vessels of the lung parenchyma also dilates, and because of this increase in capacitance of lung parenchyma, there is a decrease of venous return from pulmonary veins into the left atrium. So because there is a decreased flow in left atrium, there is a decreased flow of blood in left ventricle. Now this causes a decrease in end diastolic volume of left ventricle, which ultimately causes a decreased outflow of blood from left ventricle to aorta, which causes a decrease in stroke volume, and this manifests as a decrease in blood pressure. Yeah, at the same time, what happens is that because of the negative pressure inside the mediastinum, there is more amount of blood flowing through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava because of the sort of vacuum that is created in the right atrium, because right atrium lies right in the center of mediastinum. So because of more blood is flowing into the right atrium, more blood comes from right atrium to right ventricle. So because of increase in blood volume in the right ventricle, the septum in between the ventricle is pushed slightly towards the left, and even this thing causes a decrease in end diastolic volume of the left ventricle, which manifests as a decrease in stroke volume, and finally this causes a decrease in blood pressure. But this decrease in blood pressure in a normal person is never more than 10 millimeters of mercury. It is always less than 10 millimeters of mercury. But let's see what happens when a person has some pathological condition. So there's a condition called cardiac tamponade. So during cardiac tamponade, what happens is there's a lot of blood or pericardial effusion that develops in between the myocardium and pericardium of the heart, and this blood tries to compress both the right and the left ventricle. But because our right ventricle is comparatively thinner than the left ventricle, right ventricle is compressed more than the left ventricle. So the effective lumen of the right ventricle decreases. See, so now if this person takes in a deep breath, because of the negative intrathoracic pressure, less blood will come to left atrium, less blood will come to left ventricle, but more blood will come from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava into the right atrium. Now this increased amount of blood in right atrium will flow to right ventricle, and now increase in amount of blood in right ventricle along with decrease in amount of blood in left ventricle will cause the septum to move significantly towards the left ventricle, and this will cause the effective volume of left ventricle to fall significantly. So end diastolic volume of left ventricle will fall significantly. This will cause a fall in stroke volume, and less amount of blood will get out of aorta, and this will cause a fall in blood pressure that is more than 10 millimeters of mercury, and this is what Pulsus Paradoxus is. So if you have a cardiac tamponade, when you take a deep breath and someone is measuring your blood pressure, systolic blood pressure will fall more than 10 millimeters of mercury if you take a deep breath, and this is what Pulsus Paradoxus is. Sometimes you can develop Pulsus Paradoxus even if you don't have a cardiac tamponade. So what happens is that if you take a deep breath, very deep breath, and which causes a very much negative intrathoracic pressure, there is a large amount of blood that flows into the superior and inferior vena cava, and this large amount of blood will push the septum towards the left ventricle even if he does not have cardiac tamponade. So a condition which is characterized by huge negative intrathoracic pressure is severe asthma. So if you have a severe asthma, you can also develop Pulsus Paradoxus. So that is it. Thank you.